Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview and update where we'll be talking about Top Gun Maverick flying past $600 million domestically. We also have some updated numbers for the weekend projections for Thor, Love and Thunder's second week of release, and as of right now, it's pretty much matching up Doctor Strange 2 in a lot of ways, and so that's going to be a number that I'm going to continue to follow, as I do suspect that we will see similar drop-offs, but that, of course, is still a big question mark until the actual numbers themselves come out, and if Doctor Strange 2 is a good metric for us to look at, it might spell trouble for Thor, Love and Thunder down the road, but we honestly don't know at this point. Those weekend 2 numbers, especially the international ones, since all we are getting right now are projected domestic ones, are really going to be the telltale sign of whether the film is going to be just a generic MCU making a little bit of profit film or whether or not it could potentially be a box office flop. We'll have to wait and see what those numbers are. But before any further though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with that bell notification on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So the first bit of news I want to talk about is that Top Gun Maverick is still breaking records, is still doing incredibly well. This movie has flown past $600 million in the domestic marketplace, which is just absolutely insane. As it goes on to say here, Paramount Pictures' Top Gun Maverick's first run release has surpassed Titanic's first run release of $601.9 million to $600.7 million respectively. Now, I will try to point out, of course, that these are all numbers before you adjust for inflation, which I do think is a very incredibly important metric, because not only do we not really have any data from that time or from now to be able to compare actual ticket sales, right? The actual individual number of tickets, the individual number of people going to see said movies in any real specific sense. And so therefore comparing these two numbers, I think when you actually adjust for inflation, is a little bit more, genuine. That all being said, the fact that the film has even gotten to $600 million in just the domestic marketplace, when you compare it to the total international, total world, I don't know why I'm saying words weird today, total worldwide numbers of the vast majority of films to be coming out the last couple of years, is really, really impressive. So I just want to give a shout out to Top Gun Maverick, and also shout out to Tugs from Geeks and Gamers for tagging me in a post on Twitter talking about this very thing, because let's just be honest, this is great news. It's great news for the box office. It's great news for movie theaters, and of course it's great news for Top Gun Maverick, which is a very, very solid movie. All right, now let's go ahead and go into those numbers. I know, River, I know. She's like, why can't we just talk about Top Gun Maverick for the entire video? Why do we have to talk about Thor, Love and Blunder? Why do we have to do that? Well, it's because that's kind of what we do on this channel. But we do have some projections now for the weekend, for the second week of release. So Thor, Love and Thunder is projected to make $50 million domestically for its second week, pushing it to the $243.3 million total domestic, and that is a 65% drop from the previous week. Now, this is very much in line with many of the recent MCU releases. In fact, over on Deadline, they point out that this is right up there with Spider-Man No Way Home, which saw a 67% drop, though that film had a much larger opening just worldwide and went on to make almost $2 billion. It is, again, just a little bit better, a little bit stronger than Doctor Strange 2, which also had a 67% drop, but once again, that opened to $450 million, whereas Thor, Love and Thunder opened to $300 million, and then it was also matching up with Eternals, which really capped out worldwide around, $400 or so million, and that film needed to make around $500 to break even. And so even though it is not holding as strong as Eternals, because of the numbers being a little bit different, we're really seeing this film be really on pace to really hit that $700 or so million mark, if I had to take a guess right now. And it's really going to depend on what those international numbers are, because all we have right now are, of course, the domestic totals. So we have Thor, Love and Thunder, $50 million. Minions: The Rise of Gru continuing to hold strong, being in the theaters for a few weeks, is expected to make another $25.8 million, pushing its total domestic to $264.3 million. Still at over 4,000 screens, a 44% hold. And it's just amazing to look at this compared to Lightyear, where their domestic total is only 115.9. Once again, it's just amazing and fantastic to see Lightyear just bombing so gloriously and just really not making much of anything. The fact that it's making $1.6 million after being in theaters for about 5 weeks or so is mostly unheard of when it comes to a Disney Pixar film. And I think Minions: Rise of Gru, looking at how well that film is doing, is just really showing that case that it's not that, Disney Plus kept people from going to the theaters, or streaming services kept people from going to the theaters because they'd rather bring their kids, keep their kids at home. It's like, well, then why are they bringing their kids out in droves to go see Minions? Maybe it's that people didn't want to go see Lightyear as a pure cash grab, but also Minions is a pure cash grab as well. So maybe there's something else going on. Could it possibly be the messaging in Lightyear? Could it possibly be the fact that they are pushing a lot of identity politics into their children's programming and have even openly admitted to doing so? I would say yes, but I think that is going to be up to the individual person. We also have the new release of Where the Crawdads Sing, which is projected to make $16.2 million in its opening, which doesn't seem like that is all that bad. $16.2 million seems pretty strong there. Opening wide over 3,600 screens. Don't know much about the actual story itself. Kind of want to go into this one blind. I think I might try and go see this film actually this evening if I can, just because it's been a while since I've seen a more independent feeling film live. I know, or more independent feeling film going in completely blind, not knowing much of anything. The last time I did that was for Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I had a really good time. And so maybe that will be the case with this. I know this is based off of a book. I know I saw one comment the other day saying, yeah, it's based off a book and the book sucked. So who knows whether or not it'll be any good or not, but we'll have to, of course, wait and see on that. But 16.2 million seems to be a pretty strong number. We'll have to wait and see what those international numbers are in the coming days. Top Gun Maverick continuing to just show that it doesn't matter what the narrative pushed by the mainstream media is. Top Gun Maverick is a good film. People want to go see good films. They want to be able to go and escape. They want good content. Top Gun Maverick is proving that every single week. Still out at over 3,500 screens. I think this is now the 8th week of its release. So this film has been out for well over 2 months, and it is still performing so well. It's still performing better than a huge portion of films that have just recently come out that should be performing, well or as well as this film is right now. So a 19% hold from its previous week, still doing well. It's looking like this film will probably get somewhere close to 650. Who knows? I mean, $700 million might still even be on the table. Who honestly knows at this point? All that I do know is that no one expected, myself included, for the film to do as well as it is. And so kudos to them for being able to create a box office juggernaut, especially a domestic box office juggernaut, because even though when you compare it to a adjusted for inflation Avatar number, the fact that this is even in the same discussion as an Avatar number when that film made a crazy amount of money worldwide is a huge props to Paramount Pictures and a huge props to Tom Cruise and the entire crew of Top Gun Maverick. We got Elvis from Warner Brothers still hanging around, actually, still with some pretty strong holds. So it looks like the word of mouth on this film might actually be able to will this film to either barely break even or make just enough back to not be a huge flop. Again, those HBO Max numbers probably can really help them, and I think that's the only thing that's really been the saving grace for Warner Brothers is the fact that they're getting, countless, I think they're getting close to $1 billion every single month from their streaming service, just from those subscription fees. So they're able to write off films pretty easily. That all being said, Warner Brothers had huge, massive losses last year, and so my guess is that they're not really wanting them to be constantly stuck in that state of losing money when you have films like Matrix Resurrections and other things like it. Probably not a good thing to have, but again, still actually doing quite well. Still out at over 3,400 screens, and the film has been out now for quite a bit. Paws of Fury: Legend of Hank is coming out this weekend, opening to 7.5 million. Paramount, you can't win them all. 7.5 million, not a very good opening at all. And yeah, not really seeing how this film is going to be able to make its money back. It wasn't a huge expensive film based off of what I had been able to see from it. If I go ahead and try and pull up some of my box office charting, because we like to do some box office charting here on the channel. I have my updated one here. Let's see. We have Paws of Fury: Legend of Hank costs $45 million, so its break even is $112 million. Yeah, starting at 7.5 domestic, not a good sign at all. I doubt the film will be a major hit internationally. So yeah, hey. It was a good run while it lasted, Paws of Fury. Anyway, so I would be surprised if this one gets put on Paramount Plus. Maybe it even is getting put on Paramount Plus same day, or at the very least won't be put on too long after. Jurassic World Dominion still hanging around, 28% hold there, still at over 2,900 screens, still at, again, not doing nearly as well as it could have done. But hey, credit where credit is due, is still making massive profits. Black Phone still hanging around as well, made over $100 million internationally, so very strong performer here from Universal. Lightyear, Disney Pixar, continuing to be a massive box office flop. And then we have a new independent film, Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, 978 theaters, and those are the numbers as they currently stand. Going into the numbers a little bit deeper, as I mentioned, Thor 4 is trending similarly, domestically at the very least, with its drops to Eternals, Doctor Strange, No Way Home. It seems to be in pretty good big company. With a couple of those films, Spider-Man No Way Home was a massive hit. Doctor Strange 2, even though it had a massive drop because of bad word of mouth, still made over $900 million. In fact, close to $950 million. So, hey, credit where credit is due. However, we're also seeing Eternals in this list, and Eternals actually had a stronger hold, even though the film ended up capping out around $400 million and ended up losing a decent amount of money for Disney at that point. And so we'll go ahead now and dive into the numbers themselves and see what kind of drop-offs we're seeing. So these are the numbers, either the daily numbers for Thor, Love, and Thunder. So as you can see, that 63% drop from that Sunday to Monday. We talked about that one just the other day. Now we have these Tuesday numbers, and so in the Tuesday numbers, it actually did better than the Monday by about 12%. When we compare that to Doctor Strange in its release, we'll see that Tuesday ended up dropping 7%. So for the first time in this comparison between the two films, Thor, Love, and Thunder has actually beaten out Doctor Strange 2. However, because there was a $150 million difference in the worldwide opening between these two films, we still see Doctor Strange 2 having the edge overall. As you can see from here, the domestic total difference between the films in the same time of their release, Thor, Love, and Thunder, $170 million is the current domestic versus the $213.6 million where Doctor Strange was at the same point of its release. If these differences hold, right, so if these differences remain consistent, if we see similar drop-offs, which, again, 65% drop-off for Thor, Love, and Thunder is very similar to the drop-off we saw for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. If we see a similar drop-off also internationally and not just domestically, then we could potentially see ourselves in a scenario where the movie has enough drops to push it to a chance to not be able to make its money back. And so right now, based on these numbers, if these numbers hold, if the numbers are about as good as they suspect or as bad as they suspect, depending on, I guess, how you view it, we would be looking at the film probably, right now it's around $330 million or so. We're looking at the film probably getting to, $400 to $450 million by the end of its second week of release. And if that were the case, that would mean that the best case scenario for the film would be $900 million, meaning the worst case scenario probably would be in the $600 million range. So we'll have to wait and see what those numbers actually are. But one thing just to note, as you all know, I do these trackings for the, versus the first 2 weeks of release. That's what these numbers in the actual percentage numbers mean, is that the total box office versus the first 2 weeks, meaning, for instance, The Black Phone, it made 77% of its entire box office in the first 2 weeks of release, et cetera, et cetera. If we go down then to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I just listed it as Doctor Strange 2. Yep. As you can see, Doctor Strange 2, in comparison to the first 2 weeks of release, the film made 72% of its entire earnings, of the entire money that it had. So the entire run that it had so far, right, the $953.4 million it's made so far, 72% of that was made in those first 2 weeks. So if we see the film then, if we're talking here about Thor, Love, and Thunder, if we see the film have a similar number to what's right here, meaning that the first 2 weeks account for around 72% or so, that is where it gets a little bit precarious, because that 70% number, as I mentioned, puts it in a situation where it's in that $600 million range. The film needs to make $625 million in order for it to break even, talking here about Thor, Love, and Thunder. So if we're talking about it doing worse than the worst case scenario in my charting, in the typical charting that I have, then we could potentially then see the film get smaller in the $600 million range, meaning that break-even point becomes a much bigger story. And so we'll have to wait and see what those numbers are, and I cannot wait to break that down further this weekend. So those are the numbers as they currently stand. Make sure to check out my website, OMBReviews.com, to be able to follow the box office tracking and also to be able to do some maybe math for yourselves as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think the weekend 2 numbers internationally are going to be for this film? Again, I think that based off of the projections we're currently getting for for Thor, Love, and Thunder, I think that what we are going to see is something very similar. I think the 65% drop makes a lot of sense to me, as this is something that matches a lot of the other films. Word of mouth is not that strong with it, and so really it's going to be what does it do in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th week, and also, most importantly, what does it do internationally? So do you think it's going to make $50 million? Do you think it's going to make more or less? Again, competition really isn't all that much at the box office, but as we all know, just because there's no competition does not necessarily mean that a film is going to do well, because people still have to will themselves to go to the theater to go see a film. And if the word of mouth is not very good, then it's going to make a lot more people susceptible to say, yeah, I think I'll just stay home. But let me know your thoughts about this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, slap that fire button on Odyssey. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to my July Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. First starting off with Brandon, let's go Brandon, Chris from the 80s, who you can check out over on YouTube, Garrett Searles, Heimir Ari Hymason, Jeff Toon, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Father, Luca Illick, Orange Hat Reviews, who you can also check out over on his YouTube channel as well. Congrats on recently getting to 1,000 subscribers. Rosetta Allen, who you can also find on YouTube as well. Stan Andrian and Miss Martin Muses, who also has her own YouTube channel. Thank you all very much for supporting me over on the platform of Patreon. We also have my Subscribe Star members, Matt317, Storm Tracker, The R, Fast Reaction, John B, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alice McCarthy Jr., shout out to you, good sir, and continue that awesome recovery that you are doing. Dean Heiss, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and ZK-Man. ZK-Man, you can find out over and follow him on Twitter as well. And we also have my Locals members. We have of course, the lovely and amazing Minnesota hockey fan. How about a hockey player? UAB UAB Mad Dog, Mike Jackson for the win, and Robert Barnes, as well as Brett D90. Thank you very much. And my last supporter, of course, is the amazing Tina B, Empress of the Universe, one of my mods on the channel. Check out her new show with my other Valkyrie, Stephanie B, on her channel, Tina B's channel, which is called Soup to Nuts. Go check that out because it is pretty awesome and fun content. Anyway, that is going to be it for all of my Keeper of the Bifrost level members and above. If you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, please make sure that you check out the top link of the video description. It is w.lo, the Willow link, as I like to call it, and you can find my Patreon, Subscribe Star, etc., where you can get not only shout outs, but also access to an exclusive podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger every single month, and also access to giveaways of Blu-rays, 4Ks, etc., all that good stuff. Check that out in the video description. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.